please. Okay. Just for a moment. Muy buenos días. La Universidad Tecnológica de Panamá, a través del Centro Especializado en Lenguas, ha organizado este webinar titulado Digital Learning in German Education Experience During the Pandemic. Saludamos a las autoridades presentes en sala. Magíster Lisa Sánchez, directora nacional del Centro Especializado en Lenguas de la Universidad Tecnológica de Panamá. Magíster Philipp Schleicher, expositor alemán invitado. Coordinadores de los centros regionales. Docentes del Centro Especializado en Lenguas a nivel nacional. Participantes del webinar. Les recordamos que este evento está siendo grabado, por lo que les solicitamos a los participantes que por favor mantengan cámaras y micrófonos apagados para así evitar interrupciones. Sus saludos, mensajes y preguntas nos los pueden hacer llegar a través del chat de la plataforma. El objetivo del webinar es el de compartir con nuestro expositor las experiencias y técnicas de enseñanza virtual implementadas en los cursos de inglés durante los meses de pandemia en las universidades alemanas. Invitamos entonces a nuestro expositor, graduado de Inglés, Historia y Estudios Sociales. Actualmente es profesor de inglés en la escuela secundaria de la ciudad de Bad Kissingen y profesor de inglés en la Universidad de Westbourne. Ha realizado estudios en el extranjero en la ciudad de Salamanca, España y en Seúl, Corea del Sur. Con ustedes el magíster Philipp Schleicher.
Thank you very much for the introduction.
Perfect.
Okay, yeah, good morning, everybody, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to all of you, and I'm just starting my presentation so that we can start. Okay. Yeah, just to start from the very beginning, the time of Corona and the pandemic was a new start for all of us, especially in school where we had to face different challenges, and we tried to use this change as a chance, as displayed here in the first picture. My presentation is divided basically into two parts. First of all, I'm going to talk about some general remarks of how the pandemic changed our way of teaching and some general ideas about teaching in the homeschooling system, in the distance learning. Then in the second part, I would like you to just see and visit some of my classes, or one sample class I prepared for you today to bring you some ideas of how we try to implement distance teaching, distance learning into our school system. If you have any questions during the presentation, just wait to the end, take some notes, and at the end we have some time to discuss all the questions that might come up. Okay. First of all, I would like you to explain a little bit about the situation in Germany, which we had to deal with in the last year. One of the key dates was March 16 last year, when all schools in Bavaria had to close due to the pandemic. Bavaria is the state in Germany where I live in, where I teach in, and basically all states in Germany followed similar regulations, some a little bit later and some a little bit earlier. But this was one day we had to keep in mind. Right afterwards, homeschooling started for the teachers and for the students. Homeschooling was absolutely a new concept in Germany. We didn't have a homeschooling system here. If you compare it especially to the United States, we were not having any experiences in homeschooling or long distance teaching. In June 2020, so a huge period of time lay between these two dates, students got back to class, but only in split up groups of maximum 12 students per class. The other group of the class had to stay at home and spend their time online via homeschooling and long distance learning. The system was not brought to the whole state. So the schools were independent to decide which system they followed. Some schools decided to teach one group of the class for one whole week and then sent this group back home. Other schools decided to implement a day change system. After the summer break in September, school started with a regular number of students in a class, which led to a very optimistic view to the new school year. But soon after, classes had to split up again, and sometime later all students had to stay at home again. So we had two different waves of corona pandemic in Germany, and right now we are just heading to the end of the school year. All students are back in class, and we are doing our best to fit in the situation and to follow all the kind of strict rules when we talk about school and the danger of infection. So this cartoon shows us some problems you might have also came across when you talk about students and distance learning and homeschooling. We figured out that some students had real troubles at home focusing on this stuff they should learn. And also the parents were struggling, as you can see in this cartoon, a lot with their kids at home when they were not used to it, and when they tried to support them in terms of schooling, this was kind of challenging for all people and for all students in this situation. But we figured out one very basic thing that we all know: learning is possible everywhere. So it doesn't matter if we are at home, if we are at school, we can learn everywhere. And this is one basic fact we have to keep in mind. What is important for learning is the object of learning and the situation, meaning what you learn is important and how you learn it is important. Learning is not depending on place or time. So we try to see it a little bit different and try to loosen our strict rules or our strict laws in terms of learning. Especially when we talk about communication, a new culture of learning was implemented very quickly soon after the first lockdown, as we call it here in Germany, when all the students had to stay at home. The question was, especially at school, when we talked about which methods are perfectly for the situation or how to deal with this situation in general, we talked about how to teach and especially how to learn in this new surrounding. As I just said before, we were not used to any forms of distance teaching, distance learning, or homeschooling, so it was just a kick-off start for all of us. We had to make sure that some requirements were successful for this new method. Especially, we focused on technical equipment, learning management system, video conference tools, and the place of work for students. Here we are already into some struggles or into some challenges. When we talk about technical equipment, we have to keep in mind that in Germany, the state system hasn't provided any technical support for students yet. So the technical equipment ranges from small screen mobile phones up to fully equipped home offices for students. So very difficult for us to make a general decision of which system to implement, because we didn't know how the technical equipment at home was for each student. The learning management system was implemented before Corona time, but to be honest, only a few teachers used it before, and so we had to implement it right away to make the teachers familiar with the system and to make the students familiar with the system as well. The video conference tools differed a lot and still do. We have one statewide option for video conference tools, and this was implemented at the beginning of this year. So kind of late, to be honest, for the Corona pandemic, but we are used to it now and we use it the majority of time. The place of work for students, as we just saw in the cartoon, differs a lot. So we couldn't make sure that all students have a single room for themselves at home where they can work independently and without anyone disturbing them. So this was a challenge we had to focus and we had to keep in mind. Another requirement which has to be in focus was the content. We had to change the content of the learning material, which will be shown later on, and we had to teach the teachers of how to deal with the new situation and how to deal with the students via their computer and in homeschooling system. We focus on 4 central aspects, especially communication, tasks, feedback, and motivation were figured out to be one of the key aspects in homeschooling and long distance learning. I'm going to talk about those 4 aspects a little bit more detailed and to make sure that we try to focus on one aspect especially, which will be clear after my presentation, hopefully. Communication. We all know that communication is essential when we talk about learning and when we talk about student and teacher relationship. The communication don't focus only on teacher and students, but also on colleagues and school administration. One central question here at the very beginning was about the expectations. Expectations, especially by the administration towards colleagues, and also expectations of students towards their teachers and parents included as well. We made sure that our communication is clear, focused on commitment, and focused on continuity, meaning we had to stay in touch with the students as good as possible. Before Corona, as you all know, communication was an essential part of teaching. We didn't think about it a lot. It was basically our daily business. But in terms of homeschooling and long distance learning, we had to make sure that communication was a crucial part, an essential part that we had to focus on and that we had to think new and reinvent in some parts. One single aspect or one example is here that we try to implement rituals that all students had to do. For example, here a morning briefing. I will come back to this later, but this morning briefing was very crucial for us as a school to bring all the students at one certain time at 8 o'clock in front of their computer and to introduce them to the day and to the work they had to focus on. The task, as I mentioned, had to be designed in a slightly different way. Some aspects that I'm going to mention should be clear in every teaching situation, in every teaching context. The tasks should be easily accessible and clear. This is important, especially when we talk about situations without a face-to-face relationship. So all the tasks had to be clearly defined and clearly accessible to all the students. Very simple, we couldn't ask or we couldn't answer the students' questions right away. And this was one goal that we tried to achieve, that we formulate all tasks clearly enough so that the students can work without any help from us independently on their own. Clear is also that the task had to be comprehensible and understandable for all students. What I already mentioned before is that students should be able to cope with the task independently. So we couldn't require parents to be assigned to their kids and to be like an assistant teacher. This was very clear from the very beginning that we tried to make the task and the whole learning surrounding independent for each student, so that we can guarantee that all the students have the same opportunities, regardless if their parents are next to them or if anyone else is trying or is able to help them. Open tasks are always a little bit tricky for teachers, as you all know. Open tasks are very, let's say, challenging to correct and challenging to give some marks on open tasks. Simply because there is no sample solution and we cannot just mark them right or wrong. But open tasks give our students a very huge freedom, and especially in this time where we couldn't see the students face to face, a huge place where they can be creative, a huge place where they can just make up their own ideas. Of course, we had to build different tasks for the students with different strengths and weaknesses. And this was, to be honest, one of the crucial points where we had to focus on our own, I'll talk about that later, to make sure that our workload is handleable in any place and time. Feedback is one of the essential parts in learning in general, but especially in the part and in the time where we couldn't see the students face to face. Feedback can be given in different stages and in different surroundings. Even when we talk about homeschooling, feedback is possible, and feedback is very important, especially in this period, in this surrounding. Feedback, as we all know, is essential for the learning progress. Only if the students know what can be improved and in which fields they did a good job and in which fields they have to focus on, only then learning is essential and learning is fruitful. Feedback should be appropriate and reinforcing feedback culture. Feedback culture is very important for all of us, not only when we talk about teaching, but also when we talk about future job perspectives. Feedback is an essential key factor and very important for our students to learn. Therefore, we teachers have to act as a role model to give the students feedback they profit from and feedback they could focus on and learn from. We had to make sure that our feedback is following certain rules, for example, security, liability, and transparency. It should be clear for students that we have certain credentials that are important for us and important for our teaching. And the students had to make sure that they know about these points of importance, and they should be able to follow this transparency when we gave them feedback. Feedback can be given not only by teachers, but also by fellow students, which is very important not only in terms of Corona, but in general, which is also, to be honest, a very difficult task for students, as you probably all know. Students have some problems telling other students in their class, you should improve this and that, or what you focused on was not the right decision. You should have focused on this and that. So the feedback among fellow students is a very important goal to focus on, but not a very easy one, especially if the students don't know each other very well, or if they are friends, especially if they are friends, they have some problems to give a very honest feedback to each other. Self-assessment is a feedback form that you probably all know, which is based on a very transparent view on their own work of the students. So this feedback especially was introduced for students, let's say in grade 10, 11, 12. Feedback also can be part of students' work, meaning, as you will see later on, when the students are dealing with a task and presenting their results and their ideas to the rest of the class, The rest of the class as an audience should be focusing on feedback afterwards. Motivation is one crucial element in education in general, but especially if we cannot focus on students face-to-face, we have to make sure that the motivation is high enough to focus on teaching and learning in front of the computer. So we should build tasks that students can cope with independently and active. Active meaning we should give them enough room for a discussion, enough room to exchange their ideas, enough room to give feedback to one another. What is always important that we can explore, research and discover certain field of education with our students together. Meaning that the teacher is not sitting in front of the class teaching them what is wrong or what is right, but giving the students the opportunity and the task to figure out what is essential and what is crucial for this part of teaching on for this subject, for example. Trying out is always one thing that students like a lot, as at least what I figure out. Trying out means not trial and error, but trying out means you can fail, and this is no problem at all. At least what you should focus on is finding out at which point you did something wrong or something not perfectly fitting into this situation. We should vary the topics and methods as we do basically in our daily teaching as well. And this is especially important when we talk about homeschooling and long-distance learning. Meaningful task is a very obvious goal and leads to a higher motivation of students when we gave them the impression, hey, the task we're doing right now is important for your daily life or is important for your future career. This was already the first part of my presentation, focusing on some general remarks and some general ideas which we developed in terms of Corona and in terms of homeschooling. The cartoon you are seeing right now leads me to the second part, to our daily experience and our daily work. This cartoon is focusing on one thing we had to do in German schools as well, meaning a quick test, a quick Corona test every morning with our students. Depending on the group, we had to focus on different types of Corona tests. Depending on the group means we had to split up the group into students who were already infected by Corona before, and they had to take another test than other students in the class. So the whole bureaucracy in terms of Corona took a huge part in our teaching, daily teaching, and in our situation in school in general. Our daily work focused on one simple, let's say, platform, which was the class Padlet. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Padlet. Padlet is a central place where we stored and we organized all the work which students should be focusing on for one day. So on this class Padlet, students saw all the work and all the materials they had to work on for this day. This class Padlet is accessible for every student and could be seen in from the very beginning of the school day up to the end of the school day. The morning routine started by sending a good morning message via our school messenger. Our school messenger basically worked very similar to other messengers we all installed on our mobile phones, for example, WhatsApp or the Facebook Messenger, very similar to this one. So students were used to this technique and didn't have any problems using this messenger. And this routine was very simple, very easy. The teacher sends every morning, let's say at around 7 or 7:30, a good morning message. Basically, good morning class, how are you today? I'm looking forward to our video conference. And the basic task of the morning was for all students the same: send a good morning message to the teacher, just very briefly saying, good morning teacher, I'm fine, looking forward to see you later. We had our daily video conferences soon after, meaning we got all the classes together. Some teachers divided their class into 2 parts, for example me, just to make sure that we focus on, let's say in my case, 15 students a group, so that we can focus on each student a little bit better. And we had to focus on each student with more time than with a group of, let's say, 30 or 32 students in total. Our daily video conferences started more or less the same. We started with a round of short feedback, and here we have the key term self-assessment about the last day, meaning all students were invited to say what was good about their last school day and which problems they had to focus on. Then we had a task check, meaning we focused on the task for the day with an outlook on the task the student had to focus on. Meaning we as teachers explained what we expect the students to do and what tasks are tricky, which tasks were easy to access. What was important for us was that we didn't overload the students with video conferences and that we didn't overload the students with too much exercises and too much tasks. Therefore, we focused on one subject a day via video conference. So, for example, we set the video conferences in the morning from, let's say, 8 up to 10 o'clock, and then we focused only on teaching English in the video conference. All other subjects, let's say German, math, history, geography, and so on, were dealt with on the Padlet. Meaning we focused on one subject, very simple reason, to make the students clear English is important for us now. All the other subjects you can deal with later in the morning, but in the video conference we focus on one single subject. The video conferences were limited to a time of 2 hours, and then the individual learning time was started right afterwards. 2 hours as a video conference, our experience is absolutely fine, as you all probably know and all figured out during the last month and the last year. Longer video conferences, longer distance learning via video conference is really challenging for students and for teachers as well. So we limited the time on 2 hours, which was absolutely fine for us. And I'm going to show you some examples how this time can be structured and how that time can be used. After this individual learning time at around 1 p.m., we had a short get-together with the students, talking about problems, get together in terms of video conference. So we get together in the video conference again for about, let's say, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to focus on problems or to focus on questions the students had with the material. The fulfilled task had to be sent to the teacher latest 2 p.m. Okay, now I would like you to show you some ideas or some tasks that we focus on in the class of English. In the English lessons, we focus in the 9th grade, we focus on Northern Ireland. And this lesson focused on Northern Ireland's street art with a special focus on history and art and sightseeing and activities you can focus on when we talk about Northern Ireland. The lesson started with a warm-up and a pre-watching activity. Students were divided into groups of 3. These groups were divided into so-called breakout sessions. Breakout sessions, I don't know how familiar you are with the program of Zoom conference. Zoom conference is very similar to the video conference tool that we used in school, meaning we can build up group rooms for the students. And in each group room, for 3 students in this case, students can exchange ideas and work on the task independently. The first warm-up task was to collect words and phrases for presenting a city or a region in form of a placemat, or you can also be a little bit flexible here in form of a mind map. Some ideas were presented by the teacher. For example, you can focus on transport or sites or activities. Soon after this first task, students get together in another group to exchange their ideas, to exchange what they find out of how to present a city. This task was especially important for students to get into thinking about which words are important for the lesson, which words I learned before, and which words should be important for me for the rest of the school year when we talk about cities and activities like sightseeing. While watching already implemented, we focus in this lesson on watching a short video clip. I'm going to share this presentation later to you that you can focus on this video. It's a video published by the British Council, and this video focusing on street art in Northern Ireland, as I presented before, and especially murals. Murals are this kind of paintings in Northern Ireland, especially street paintings, which focus on a very political message and trying to transport this message to all the people passing by the street. I'm going to show you one example later. Students had to focus on 2 tasks while watching this video. The first task was to focus on aspects of Belfast which were presented in the video. So this video is focusing on the city of Belfast in Northern Ireland and is presenting some aspects what the students didn't know before about the city of Belfast, and they should focus on this and take some notes on Belfast. The second part of the while watching activity focused on troubles in Northern Ireland. To make it a little bit easier for the students, we prepared a chart for the students to fill in information. The chart looked like this one here. Students focus on 3 aspects like causes, aims, and methods for achieving aims. Belfast and Northern Ireland in particular was already dealt with in previous lessons, and we focused on political struggles here in this lesson. The video, just to make sure, the video leads for about, let's say, 4 or 5 minutes, so it's a quite limited time the students had to focus on this video. And the whole while watching tasks were single tasks, so the students had to work on this task independently on their own. The post-watching task focused on one mural, and you can see it here. The task was to research the meaning of this mural. So we have here the part of exploring and finding out on their own what this mural has for a message about the history of this mural and how this mural can be transferred to the situation, to the political situation in Northern Ireland nowadays. Students had to focus on the text and the visual elements in this mural and were asked to write a text about 150 words. 150 words is a typical limit we set for students in the 9th grade, just to make sure they train their writing skills and just to make sure they focus on writing, especially when we talk about training them for graduation and training them for the task for the graduation final exams. The last task for this period for this lesson about Northern Ireland was a group work. So students had to go together in groups again to focus on this map, and they were asked to develop an attractive route for a 1-week tour through Northern Ireland. So for example, the situation could be the following. You and your family are planning a trip to Northern Ireland. You are asked by your dad to prepare a group route tour for 1 week through Northern Ireland. Students were asked to include sightseeing as well as activities. So they were asked to focus on research on the internet, for example, which sites are important in Northern Ireland, which sites are a must-see, and which activities can be focused on. So they had to find a balance between adventure and recreation, and to make sure and make visible for the rest of the class which cities they choose and which activities they chose. They had to mark them in the map. Okay. And at the end of this online lesson, we focus on the presentation of this group work and of this feedback. So we try to encourage the students to present their group work, to present their ideas of this 1 week in Ireland, and to give them the opportunity to present their findings and to present their ideas in front of the class. The end of the lesson marked a Kahoot. I'm not familiar, or I don't know how familiar you are with the Kahoot system. Kahoot is an online quiz. I would like you to join now if we have some time left, but I think we have some time. Lisa, just to make sure, how much time do I have for my presentation left?
You have 20 minutes.
All right, yes, perfect. So just give me a second. Okay. So I would like you, I would like you to use your mobile phones or your computer if possible and join the Kahoot quiz game about Northern Ireland. You can see here the website Kahoot IT, and then you're asked to enter a game pin. Just let me know if you have any troubles entering the website.
So we have to enter the PIN. Ok, ¿alguien más quiere participar? A ver, Silvia Wilson, me imagino que es esta, ¿verdad? A ver, ¿quién más? Vamos a darle, let's, 1 more minute to see whoever wants to join.
Yeah. Has any one of you experiences with the system of Kahoot?
Yes, I love it.
All right, perfect.
Okay, I think it's 5 people enough.
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely fine. I
Yeah.
just would like to show you the system and the quiz behind the website. Okay, some more people are joining. So just some brief explanations before we start. I will present you 9 questions in total. These questions are the same questions I presented for my students. So as you're probably not, all right, more people are joining. As you're probably not that familiar with the system of Northern Ireland, you can just guess your answers, all right? So no worries if you don't know the answers for the questions. The system is as the following. I'm going to present you the questions here at my computer. And with your mobile phone, you will see, I think most of you are using your mobile phone, you will see colors and symbols. This color and symbols can be seen in the answers for the questions. So you just have to choose the right answer and check out the color of the answer on my screen, and then you need to choose this color on your mobile screen. Okay, so let's start. So you can see 4 possible answers here. Pick one answer which you think is right and choose the color and the symbol on your mobile screen. So Mandarin is the right answer. It was chosen by 1 participant. Okay. And followed by the question and the right answer, you can see the scoreboard, meaning you can see how good the students participate and how good the students' performance is in this quiz. Okay, it's about 93 years old, the age of Northern Ireland. Okay, we have a change in the scoreboard. So what we try to focus on in this quiz are some general information about Northern Ireland, not only about stuff which we taught in class, but in general some facts, for example, here about the weather and the rain in Northern Ireland, which is quite a lot, about 157 days. Okay. Yeah, all right. The invention of the tire is well known. This could also be part of the presentation and the group work, which I talked before about, the landmarks in Northern Ireland, for example. Okay, good job.
That's a good movie.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah. Okay. Okay, only one correct answer for this question. This question, to be honest, is a little bit tricky. So all the students basically answered it by trial and error. So absolutely fine. And with one question, no, two questions left. So as you can see here, we already talked about some typical Irish dishes, some typical Irish cuisine, which was a very popular topic among the students. Yeah, okay. And the last question about the Northern Irish population. Okay, that's it. And I think we have one winner, third place for CR, second place Ellie, and the winner is...
Who is the winner?
Snickers. All right, congratulations, Snickers. Good job.
I don't know who Sneakers is, but what, congratulations. You did a good job.
Thank you. I guess is it my lucky day today? I was guessing.
Absolutely, you did a good job.
Great.
Okay, just let me continue. I have some slides left. So that's it. So I would like to mention also some scientific findings on the period of homeschooling, which were conducted by a survey of the German National Education Panel System. And they find out that most important skills for students during the pandemic and during the period of homeschooling were the reading ability, very easy and understandable. If all the tasks were published on this Padlet, students had to make sure they read good enough to understand all the tasks and all the requirements we set for this task. And very obvious finding, the willingness to achieve good results should be clear and should be implemented by all students. What they find also very interesting was the fact that interest in learning is not as important as we all might thought before. What was important in this survey was these two skills, reading ability and willingness to achieve good results. But the interest in learning, let's say if it's Northern Ireland or if it's India, doesn't matter that much. Parents also participated in the survey, and they said overall the kids did a good job at home. And they didn't focus on any motivational problems. So very good and a very positive feedback given by the parents. And one, let's say, finding which was obvious in a way, especially in the way as I described our way of teaching with this 2-hour time online lesson and this 2-hour time video conference, students learned less time during the pandemic. So when we had typical classes here in Germany, for example, let's say from 8 o'clock in the morning up to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, students didn't spend that much time in front of the computer or in front of their school material when they were at home. So we had to deal with this fact as well when we consider about facts like how to grade students and how to grade their performance when we talk about the homeschooling period. So some central challenges I talked about before, just to make sure we have them in mind and just to make sure we can focus on them in our discussion, are social challenges. It's very difficult for the students to come across this new situation where they are not in touch with their classmates physically, but only connected through the video conference tool and through the messenger. We already talked about technical challenges. The state of Bavaria tried to reduce this challenge by giving computers to kids or to families in need of computer equipment. So this challenge was, at least in the last couple of months, dealt by the state. Very closely connected to this challenge is the point of data privacy. We talked a lot about here in Germany about the fact, is it allowed to force the students to join video conference tools? So basically it's not allowed to force them to join the conference using their picture, but in general, they should use the opportunity we gave them to join the video conference. If they would like to join without their camera on, that's absolutely fine. But in general, this challenge and this discussion about the data privacy was very controversial in Germany, and it still is. Workload is the last challenge I would like to mention here. Workload, not in terms only of students' workload, but also on the terms of teacher workload. I talked a lot about the feedback and the importance of feedback. So you can imagine if you are teaching a class with, let's say, 25 students, and you are asked, or your own motivation is to give every student a feedback, that this needs time, quite a lot of time. And so we have to talk about how this workload can be minimalized, or how this workload can be integrated into our daily routine and in our daily teaching. So just some remarks at the very end. Learning requires, as you all know, effort and commitment, not only teaching in class, but especially teaching in front of the computer and teaching via video conference tools. Challenges are obvious for all good teaching and for all good students' results in their performance. The positive relationship between teacher and students is one crucial part of successful teaching. And here we have to discuss how this relationship can be built when we are not in one room together, and how this relationship can be built up due to video conferences or messengers, for example. That's basically it. Thank you for listening. I'm looking forward for your question and some discussion points just afterwards.
Thank you, Philipp, so much. I don't know who has questions. Any questions, any comments for Philipp? If you can turn on your camera, you can ask your question directly to him. If not, you can just type it on the chat and I can read it. I do have some comments, but I kind of want to wait on, other people before I start talking. Hi, Gerardo.
Hello. So I don't know if it's appropriate for me to start with comments, but first of all, I have to say congratulations, Philipp. I think it was worthy of the time, and I have learned a lot. Even if we talk a lot about things like education or the best way to teach in this time, and we have even organized a couple of activities focused on trying to get the best of the students. It's a pleasure to see you here. So, and congratulations also to our director, who was came with this idea of organizing this event for today. I uh, I think there are all other people who want to know more or to give you some questions. But for me, an aspect that really captured my attention was the fact that you say, for example, this concept or this word about self-assessment, because I think it is not so easy for the students to come up with the appropriate way to analyze themselves. So to reflect on their own performance, and it's I think some problems could be that we in first place as teachers are not given maybe the right feedback to them. So and it's also not so easy because I don't dare always to say the truth when they are not performing so well, or they are not given the best of them. And other things is that I believe that the colleagues in the classroom, they are also afraid of saying something that could maybe be interpreted as underestimating the colleagues and the colleagues. And when they know they are not doing so well, my experience as a teacher is that they uh, try they how can I say it, they don't participate so much. Then I think they or for our culture, I don't know if my colleague thinks the same, but for our culture is in it's very difficult to be like exposed, or to we are afraid to make mistakes while talking in public. And it's a real challenge, and it's a real challenge. And otherwise we are also not so open to receive critics. It's like harding, and yeah, but I think it's very important, and it's something that I try also to talk with my students, to try to gain a level of confidence that allow me to be yeah, some way real with them, and to say the truth. But I repeat, it's not always so easy. So Philip, maybe you have some anecdote or some self experience.
Yes, thank you very much for your kind words, first of all, and for your question. Yeah, I mean, the topic of feedback and self-assessment, as you just said, is a very difficult one for the students, but also for us as a teacher. So what helps the students a lot is to work out, let's say, a form where they have certain aspects which they should focus on in their feedback. Let's say, for example, material you used is well chosen, is built on good research, or the language you used, it was slowly enough, it was understandable, or the eye contact you use with your fellow students. I mean, eye contact in terms of in terms of video conference is difficult for sure, but I think if you can manage to focus on certain aspects in this feedback, it is very helpful for the students.
Okay. Thank
okay,
you, Philip.
thank you.
Well, Professor Geraldo, thank you for your participation. We know Philip through Geraldo because Geraldo is our German teacher, so they know each other, and that's how we found out about Philip. Thank you, Geraldo. Does anyone have any other questions? Any other comment?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I think my comment goes along what Geraldo has said before. And first of all, I want to congratulate you. It was very interesting experience that you had, I had some surprising things that you said that it was very good, but mostly about feedback, because I find it very hard to give feedback in virtual learning. I find myself restricted because I'm so accustomed to the personal experience, and I think it's part of our culture. So this non-face-to-face, it's really hard for me. And I think this is one of my weaknesses in this year of pandemic and lockdown and teaching through e-learning. So I don't know if you have any comments or tips that I can use, because I find it hard.
Yes, thank you for your words and your question. Definitely, it's more difficult to give feedback if you cannot see the person you're talking to face to face. Absolutely right. What we tried to focus on at the very beginning was just to give a very short written feedback to all the students, just to focus on, and this can be connected what I just said to Geraldo. Just to focus on certain aspects and to focus on certain topics in the students' work. For example, in terms, when we talk about teaching English, in terms of grammar, you use all the tenses correctly, or you use good words, or you focus on good sentence structure. Just to give a very short and concrete and detailed feedback on certain aspects of students' work.
Yeah, I have been doing that in writing, but I still feel like it's not enough. That's what I feel like. I have done what you have saying, and well, it's something that I think I have to find another, like what you have said, keep on doing, perhaps do it with just one aspect and not too many things. Concentrate on 2 or 3 things, and that's it.
That's absolutely fine, and as you just said, it's not enough, and you have the feeling that it's not enough feedback for your students and not enough advice for your students, and this is one part of this, let's say, challenge of overwork, being overworked in times of e-learning and in times of Corona. If you have the goal for yourself to give each student the feedback he or she needs and deserves, you are very probably in struggle to give all your students the same amount of feedback. So just my advice from the couple of months, focus on key elements which are important for the development of each student.
Thank you very much for everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. More questions?
Anyone else? Okay. Well, sorry, I just had to do something big. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Philip, for your time for this lecture. I think it's always good for us as teachers and as a language center to know what other countries are doing in terms of education. I think that it's always good. I like that you point out about new ways of communications, of providing feedback, of creating students, designing the task, because it's something definitely different from when we were physically at the schools. And also the thing about the ritual, you know, the morning ritual, I really like about that. I'm not really sure if anyone here, teachers, are doing that, but I really like it. And I think that the Kahoot exercise is good. I have used it before with Chelsea. She works with me. However, it's always good, you know, to present this kind of, you know, different ways of learning methods. So thank you so much for your time. You know, during this pandemic, we have faced a lot of challenges, but we have successfully overcome them. But it's always good to have, you know, that experience and you know, to hear about the situations from our country. I think we're good as a language center. We're going in the right track. You know, we're, you know, using the breakout rooms as you mentioned. We use Teams. We don't use Zoom, but you know, Teams has a lot of like features that are great to teaching. So thank you so much, Philip. I think that, you know, and I don't know if anyone else has anything to say. Otherwise, we can turn on the camera and we can have a nice picture as a souvenir, and we will send that to you, Philip.
Thank you very much for the invitation once again and for having me here. It was a great pleasure to talk to all of you, and thank you for your kind words and the questions. It was a pleasure.
Fantastic, thank you. Chelsea, are you gonna take the picture?
Yeah, I'll be taking the picture. I'm just waiting for everyone to turn on their cameras.
Okay. It's always good to see you guys through these, you know, pictures, because we don't get to see each other very often. So since March last year.
I'll give you guys a few more minutes. Everyone's looking very fabulous. I'll just give you guys a little bit longer.
I think we're now, Chelsea.
That's good?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take the picture then. You have a big smile. Okay, there's one. Let me take one more just in case. Another one. And smile. Thank you. There it is. Thank you. That'll be all.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take good care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Tschüss.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Tschüss.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye-bye.